This video is sponsored by Mech Arena, more on them later. A wise man once said that you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and given how disposable entertainment mediums are these days, never has this saying been more appropriate. People got stuff to do, so if you're not going to be interesting and exciting straight out the gate, then they're going to get bored and want to do something else. Are those fireworks? Oh wow, those sure are some fireworks. Video games often struggle with getting up to temperature, and so it is worth looking at some of the best first levels that gaming has ever produced, so that we may all learn to do better in the future. It's usually quite an enjoyable experience starting a game off right, the sort of thing that puts a smile on your face and gets you grooving and dancing like da 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 da. Hey, Mech Arena, who are also the sponsors of this video. Please let me keep this joke, Mech Arena. I'm a little too proud of that. I have a lot of downtime these days, and the best way I can spend it is by blowing up mechs, which is something that Mech Arena is very good at providing. It's also good at testing your skill rather than the thickness of your wallet, and it's the sort of mobile game where practicing does a lot to help you. Lancer is an awesome mech that lets you jump, which may feel a little strange to begin with, but mastery of this technique can give you so much more mobility than other mechs and helps you out with those crazy flank plays. When you apply this to the multiple different game modes like control points and 5v5, it's easy to find something that you'll love coming back to every time. Right now there's a ton of new stuff, ranging from new modes like free-for-all to being able to join clans now, and there's the new nade launcher that launches a bunch of grenades, so now's the perfect time to join Mech Arena. Especially since it's free to play on Android, iOS and PC, and you can scan this QR code right here to get a free starter pack worth $30. There's also a link in the description down below. The starter pack includes Rocket Mortar 6, an amateur crate, and a skin to help kickstart your game. And if you're super quick, you can even add me to friends as RabbidLuigi, and I can carry you through some games if you like. Thank you to Mech Arena for sponsoring this video, and I will see you in the arena. Anyway, good first impressions time. These days, single-player campaigns in first-person shooters are little more than an afterthought. You know, the success of Fortnite and Battle Passes means that more effort should be diverted to multiplayer, where you can sell the player an experience that will be frequently updated and is available on some kind of subscription. And you know, I get that, I really do, but it does make me a little sad since the dynamism you get with FPS games lends itself really nicely to high-octane story modes. Titanfall 2 is still probably the best story mode I've played in a shooter, since it was able to go buck fucking wild with all its unique mechanics, but since there were so many of them, it had to be introduced slowly, leaving the start of the game a little high and dry. The same cannot be said for my personal favourite Call of Duty game, Modern Warfare, and that's the original Modern Warfare instead of this strange grab at an iconic name. And even though this game is mechanically nowhere near as complicated or even as fun as Titanfall 2, Crew Expendable isn't amazing because of gameplay mechanics. I like a game that starts on a boat. Between Metal Gear Solid 2 and Call of Duty 4, it's a fun setting to start a game off with, and Crew Expendable tells you everything that you could possibly want to know about what was at the time a new era for Call of Duty. Remember, this is Modern Warfare after 3 games of shooting Nazis, so you do need that distinction outlined for you as soon as possible, and when this opening mission opens with you and your team strategically taking out the crew members, not only is it drastically different and more organised than anything COD has been before this, but hey, now the mission title makes sense too. There's a few grindier sections where you play whack-a-mole with bullets instead of a mallet, but the biggest vibe coming off this level is how controlled everything is. Everyone's organised and professional and nothing at all can possibly go wrong. Hey, what was that about an enemy aircraft?
Bravo 6, come in.
Oh yeah, there's a run for your life section at the end, which apart from providing an iconic moment and handfuls of quotes, demonstrates modern Call of Duty's love of set pieces. Shit can and often will go sideways, but damn, it'll look cool and play even cooler. Never skip out on a good FPS campaign, you have too much to gain. If anyone watching this has been watching for long enough, you'll know that I have a special place in my body, heart and soul for BioShock. Strange to think that it's been a decade since the last one, and it's probably not a franchise that is part of the cultural zeitgeist in 2023, but for a period in the mid to late 2000s to the early 2010s, BioShock was home to some awesomely atmospheric video gaming, and the devs started as they meant to go on, with the first few moments of BioShock 1 being pretty goddamn flawless. I think any game that opens with you surviving a plane crash and swimming among the wreckage is off to a good start, but BioShock doesn't hang about and is far too keen to show off its fancy underwater city like a toddler who's drawn something nice in preschool. The overbearing exposition may seem like a lot to have thrown at you so early in a game, but given how bizarre Rapture is as a location, having Andrew Ryan explain this place on his terms in a way that almost sounds necessary is a welcome tonic given how the rest of the game unfolds. Society's elite needed somewhere to be creative outside of governmental control and having to worry about morality. Alright, cool, have fun with that. The flyby through the water is pretty breathtaking during your first time and something that the remaster only compounds further, but it doesn't take long at all for this fragile veneer of control and majesty to break down. BioShock is technically a first-person shooter, but the horror elements make themselves known as soon as possible, and seeing an NPC being brutally murdered in front of your eyes by a splicer sets a completely different tone that helps Rapture feel even more alien. You might as well be on Mars instead of under the ocean. Exploring from here, first weaponless and then armed with just a wrench, is the perfect antithesis of what Andrew Ryan was talking about, and underlines the major issue with abandoning morality since there be zombies down here and also superpowers? Yeah, okay, I'll bite. But hey, you can shoot lightning now, so it can't be all that bad. It's crazy how many key components of this game are established this early on. The plasmids, the splicers, you see the little sisters and the big daddy, once when they stand over you regaining consciousness, and later when a splicer gets fucking demolished. You even get a few would you kindlys for good measure. There's useful storytelling, lore, key gameplay mechanics introduced, and setups for later reveals, and all the time you're taking in this strange new world and all its bizarre sights. Just a wacky, wonderful time all around. Older games are a great place to go for amazing intro levels, and by older I more so mean games from at least 25 years ago, because only now am I realizing that older can refer to something like Minecraft for certain people, and Minecraft itself has been around for 12 years. Oh my god, I turned 28 this year, what went wrong? Anyway, so 8-bit and 16-bit games basically had to have decent intro levels in order to teach the player how to play the game, since tutorial levels weren't all that popular and games developers hadn't come to the conclusion that we're all a bunch of mindless idiots who play games with our eyes closed the whole time. 16-bit games especially got into a really good habit of teaching through action, and while I'd happily talk about the first stage of Mega Man X, the internet has had more than a decade to watch that level sequelitis episode, and I'm in no mood for being redundant. So I'm going to turn to the next best thing, which, like in most cases in life, can be found in The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. First levels in Zelda games are either slow affairs that gently ease you into the concept of being an elf boy with a sword, or they throw you straight in at the deep end and see if you drown. It actually applies quite nicely. Wind Waker, easing in. Zelda 1, deep end. Skyward Sword, easing in. Breath of the Wild, so deep end that the first weapon you find breaks after 4 hits. Sure enough, A Link to the Past is more on the deep end of the spectrum, where you're given a tiny ounce of story and then left to your own devices. Certain areas are blocked off so you don't explore too much, but you'll still have to figure stuff out on your own, and finding the secret entrance around the side of Hyrule Castle in the driving rain is a deeply memorable experience. As is basically everything that comes after, because with A Link to the Past having more of a recognized framework to its world, and having towns and NPCs that don't live in caves, infiltrating a castle is such a big deal here. This is the next big step for Zelda. You've got a more concrete story and atmospheric weather conditions and a family for like 2 minutes. But my point is that A Link to the Past introduces all these concepts one after another as a way of setting itself above the Zelda games that came before. Your dead uncle gives you a sword and then you're on your way through the bowels of the castle, eventually finding yourself in the front hall with its grandiose music and its spectacle working so hard to keep pace with premise that works so well here. A Link to the Past has designs on getting the player to rescue Princess Zelda by busting her out of a prison, and this game is on a console that can manage all of that without a problem. It helps the narrative so much, and it helps the sense of adventure that this franchise thrives on. I don't think it's been done better since. It's always worth remembering that the first level of a video game doesn't have to be the best level of a game. You know, it'd be nice if that was the case, but also a little worrying if a game is peaking this early. I'm sure most games have a host of other mechanics to drip feed the player over time, and so creating a jaw-dropping scenario from something simple is desirable, but not all that easy. With that in mind, Uncharted 2 almost reads like a masterclass in grabbing attention. After one game of functioning like an Indiana Jones prequel, Uncharted ended up developing this reputation of almost mimicking the serial nature of old adventure stories. Almost like, how will Nathan Drake make it out of this one? Find out on the next exciting episode of Uncharted! And it plays into the idea of Nathan Drake being this unrealistic character who ends up in ridiculous situations. So starting the second game with Nathan waking up inside a crashed train and bleeding out, and also the train is hanging off the edge of a cliff, yeah, that'll do nicely. Again, it's a ridiculous situation that no one will get into, but it's the perfect start for another Uncharted game full of this kind of shit. There are numerous ways in which this works, but to start with, it's the best framework on which to have a tutorial for climbing, since A, the goal is very simple, B, the controls are simple in relation to this goal, and C, it's quite hard to fail this, which, yeah, takes a lot of the jeopardy out of this scenario in hindsight, but you heard the start of this video, it's all about first impressions. The start of Uncharted 2 also works really well as a time jump. As soon as you complete this section, you're whisked off back in time so you can play the first half of the game and work out how Nathan got here in the first place. But it also plants that thought in the back of your head. I know that when I first heard the characters talking about hijacking a train, a light bulb went off that made the intro make a lot more sense. It's not the best level in the game by any means. Ironically, the level where the train is still on the tracks is more fun in my eyes, and neither is the intro mechanically challenging or anything, but it's the perfect tone to start this kind of game with. Also good to know that Nathan Drake is indestructible. I don't have to worry about his well-being all game. Given recent events and possibly how this video is thumbnailed, I think we could have all seen this coming. A great intro level has the power to do many things and set all kinds of different tones of what is likely to follow, and it stands to reason that a more emotional, story-driven adventure like The Last of Us would want to set itself up as this kind of game as early as possible. The prologue is only about 15 minutes long, but it crams in so many details about this world that it's hard to think of any other part of The Last of Us as time efficient as this. The setup is simple enough. In a zombie survival game set in the future, a prologue that showcases the start of the outbreak from our protagonist's point of view can be really powerful and can help show what their life was like before everything went to shit. The thing is though, that while you play as Joel for the rest of The Last of Us, the prologue is told from his daughter Sarah's point of view, which is both a perfect way of characterizing Sarah and distancing yourself from your eventual protagonist, but it also reinforces the sense of panic at the start of a zombie apocalypse, since you're viewing it through the eyes of a child who can't really comprehend the unfolding violence. There's not a ton of gameplay beyond steering Sarah around the house and piloting Joel when he carries Sarah later, which you can possibly see as an early indication that story is the most important part of The Last of Us. But given that it's 15 minutes well spent on some powerful storytelling, I don't mind putting my controller down for a little while. It's strange to think that the only moments of direct involvement are mechanically simplistic, but are used during high drama to give the semblance of control over an uncontrollable situation. All of this builds to the last few minutes, which are permanently etched into the minds of everyone who has played this. Thematically, and given that she was left out of the promo material, Sarah was always likely to die during the prologue, but everyone involved in this scene deserves a huge amount of credit for crafting one of the saddest scenes in any game ever made. The voice acting and motion capture work from Troy Baker and Hannah Hayes is really intense to watch, and sure enough the TV show at the very least matches this kind of energy. You are 15 minutes in, and already it's one of the saddest games ever made. And that's before they get up and T-pose at the end. So yeah, that's my list of the best intro levels in all of gaming. Do you agree, or is there something else you'd put on here instead? Let me know in a comment down below, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more in the future, and hit that bell for notifications of every new upload. If you need something else to watch right now, I ranked every Grand Theft Auto game last week, and I also want to thank my top supporters on Patreon, including Sarah Malion, The Green Scorpion, and Scott Riker. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.